It's always a pleasure to interview Rosine Kushnick. She loves finding the wholeness in every individual that is in one of her retreats, in one of her events. And Rosina, I'm very happy because a very good dear friend of mine shared with me a little while ago how one of your events changed her life. She had a very traumatic situation when she was a child, and we are talking about sexual abuse, and her life changed forever. And I wanted to go a little bit more in depth in what it is what you are helping people with. In this case, for her was sexual abuse. It doesn't have to be that, but we will have a treat today talking about the masculine energy, the feminine energy, and why is that so important for each of us now these days.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
So let's start saying that all of us have both, right? Every individual, man or woman, despite the sexual orientation, have a masculine and a feminine aspect.
Yes.
How does that work? How in the last, we are not going to go year by year in 2000 years, but how has that developed? Is that imbalance?
Well, that's like a very, very big question, and probably volumes and volumes of books could be written about. But to make it really simple, we all know it's completely out of balance. It is completely out of balance within each individual. Most people that I know, it is out of balance. Most of my clients, whether it's a male or female clients, those two energies are usually in a struggle with one another, or one of the aspects may be kind of suppressed out of having a life altogether. And then when you look at relationships, another area of really solid imbalance, I believe the divorce rate in the United States is about 50%. I don't know what it is worldwide, but in general, relationships is not really the place where we look to find a lot of balance. And then when you look at the society as a whole, it becomes even more apparent the degree of the imbalance that there is.
We will talk about more in today's interview, but let's start defining what is that feminine divine and what is the masculine divine. These are the characteristics of each, and this is how they have been wanted, because there is a separation there, right? So let's talk about the feminine first.
Yeah, so what you're speaking about is often referred to as the sacred or the divine feminine. And that is, if you want, like the pure manifestation of the feminine energy. Has nothing to do with feminism. It's purely about the feminine energy. And what you have there is compassion, inclusion, love, softness, community, bonding, sensuality, qualities like that.
And when we say that it has been wounded, what does it mean? We are playing a different role, or some of those emotions maybe are not available? What does it mean?
So the wounding happens to people. right? The sacred feminine energies, and they are either present or not present, or a little bit present or a lot present. Like that, the energy itself doesn't get wounded. It's the actual individuals that get wounded. So when we talk about the feminine wounding, and we will get to the masculine wounding in a moment, we are really talking about what happened to the individual such that they saw a need to distance themselves from being an expression of the divine feminine energies. So, for example, when you grow up in a household that doesn't respect and honor bonding and expression of the emotions in a safe way, the feminine qualities in those children and also the adults of that household are not going to be very strong, right? Because it isn't safe to be inclusive and soft and forgiving and all of that when you're constantly having to fend for yourself.
And it's very important to clarify what you just said. Is the individual the one that is wounded, not the divine feminine or masculine.
Right.
So let's talk about now about the divine masculine. What are those characteristics, and why we say, or what do we want to say when we say that the individual has been wounded from this?
Okay. So the divine masculine aspects are more along the lines of decisiveness or movement or certainty, clarity, generosity, giving protection. Like it's very active and outgoing energies, whereas the feminine energies are more inward energies, soft energies. The masculine are more, outgoing. They create stuff, they do stuff, they get stuff done. And it's very, very important to understand that it doesn't matter what gender you are. You're always a combination, ideally a balanced combination of both.
What happens when that's disconnected? Because if that is the ideal, and we will talk about how to change that, what happens when that has been disconnected?
Yeah, so for example, when a male, when there's a wounding of a man in his identification with the divine masculine, you have confusion, you have indecision, you no longer have that outgoing masculine drive, but rather you have someone who is confused, who doesn't really know who they are. And it's extremely complex, as you can imagine. Like your own masculine energy and your own feminine energies have to be ideally are in a harmony and in an extension of one another. And so the feminine is nurturing the masculine, and the masculine is taking care and making sure the feminine is safe. And then ideally, you have that reflected in relationships where the same is happening, not just from the man to the woman and the woman to the man, but also when you have two women or two men in relationship, it's the same. And also the masculine energies in the woman who is in relationship with the man wants to be in a healthy relationship with the feminine aspects of the male. So it's really, it requires a lot of awareness, between the distinctions of the energies and the actual gender, if that makes any sense.
It is, absolutely. It is very complex, and it's not our idea today to complicate things, but more to get to that bottom of where we are, what can we do about it? Because I know we could be here for hours and even days explaining
years.
Exactly. So it is very, very complex. So where to start? Awareness. You mentioned the word awareness, but then there are other words so powerful, such blame and pain and hurt and anger and trust.
Yes.
As individuals, in order to find that ideal balance within and in relationships outside ourselves, where to start, what to look for, besides going to one of your workshops, because I know how they work and we will get there, but where to start, Rosina?
Yeah, you know, I very much love history, not for the sake of history, but for the sake of us understanding ourselves. And what we have experienced is a long period of the males being in charge and the females being abused, used. That should sum it up, right? Like disempowerment of the females. What that leads us to believe in some logical way is that men were empowered and women were disempowered, and now we need, as women, we need to take back our power. And I would like to suggest a different way of looking at it, which is that the male has not actually been empowered for the last few thousand years. The man has been in power, dominating the female, but the masculine energy has not been empowered. Some people refer to it as an immature masculinity that has been expressing itself, which then looks like violence and dominance. I kind of like that way of looking at it. Bottom line, what I think there's an opportunity for now in the human evolution is that the feminine and the masculine becomes empowered in both, in the individual, in the relationships, in the communities, and in the world, in the human race as a whole. And yes.
As powerful as that sounds, how can we do that?
How do we start?
Lately, women have spoken, and more we are seeing, and that's only one part of it. It's about trust. It is about allowing something different to be. Well,
right now, there is no trust, and that is for a very good reason, right? If there was trust, you would wonder what the trust is built on. That trust has to be built. It has to be re-established. And I don't know if we ever really had that trust, right? The male and the female have been really at war for a really long time. They have not been understanding one another. They have not been appreciating one another. They have not been validating one another, acknowledging one another. It has been a mess for a really long time. And so, just like with any relationship, where we have to start with is acknowledging the damage, acknowledging the pain, acknowledging what is the status quo. And it is surprising and shocking to realize how little understanding of one another there actually is.
And it's that understanding, once we are able to do that, that will lead to forgiveness. And after that, maybe being something that liberates us.
What I cannot yet speak about is the human race as a whole, but what I can speak about is groups that I work with. And yes, that is what happens, is that this pain and the anger, there's also a lot of anger about the injustice and the abuse and the violation. It seems bottomless, but there actually is a bottom to it. I've seen it over and again. When a woman is acknowledged for how she feels and she's validated, and that actually also goes for men, it is like a miracle that happens when there is sincere acknowledgement and hearing of the perceived, violator. So in other words, when there is the masculine hearing the feminine without needing to fix it, without needing to change it, but actually really hearing and understanding and getting it. I have witnessed the most amazing healing I would have really never even dreamed to be expected. It actually works. It has to take place in a very solid, safe space. And the masculine and the feminine have to be represented in whatever ratio works for that group. And yeah.
Now I understand. It was like it clicked what my friend was sharing with me.
Mm.
That's exactly how she felt. She thought she had not necessarily forgotten, but healed that part of her childhood from this sexual abuse. But as you just described, just by her being able to say it out loud, to acknowledge it, it was a healing process. And now I can see how that changed her life forever. And as you said, you have seen it many, many, many times. So Rosina, you do retreats, you do workshops, you do one-on-one healing process. Who, right now, after seeing this interview, anyone could benefit from your work. I have seen you putting into action that power. It's powerful. Who can go farther, speaking specifically about this divine masculine and feminine? I know we can say everyone, but I know you are developing your retreats and your groups for some specific individuals that may don't even know they need you, or they don't even think you could help them. Those are the people that I would like for you to talk to right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a very difficult question to distinguish that, because on one hand, yes, it could be anyone. On the other hand, it takes a certain readiness, right? It is not fun to deal with these deep pains and angers and wounds, and that goes for men and women, right? It's the same for both. Men have been as stressed and confused and wounded as women. It's just been in a completely different way that is even less recognized. And so I would say whoever feels any kind of stirring inside of like, I relate to that and I have no clue what to do about it, I would say it's for you. Other criteria, really honestly, I would say that's it. If you feel you want to go deeper in either your relationship with yourself, right? We all are composed of masculine and feminine energies. When that is out of balance, we are not well. We're not well. When it's out of balance in a relationship, the relationship is not well. And let's say both individuals are living more in their masculine energies and there's not much feminine energy available in a relationship, is not really a fun place to hang out in, or vice versa. And it's also for the people who have more of a vision for the future of our world, the future of humankind, who see it more as a task for our communities to bring in a new quality of how are we going to do this together? How are we truly going to find empowerment that is genuine, authentic, that is an expression of each individual? There's no one size fits all. Every time it looks different. Are we willing to go that far and go that deep to create a world where we're deeply connected with our true identity and living together in a way where that is being respected in one another?
Absolutely, yes. And looking for that wholeness takes responsibility, and it starts with one person. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As you can tell, I'm rather passionate about all of this. And I'm very excited to work with people really on every level. It doesn't matter to me where it's individual. Like when I watch an individual recuperate either their feminine or their masculine energies, it's such a beautiful process that actually sets them free from being stuck in a relationship where the relationship is based on the notion of its imbalance. And when one person moves into balance, it gives the other person an invitation to move into balance. It's like a ripple effect. It never stays with you. It always changes the world around you.
And multiplies. Beautiful said. We appreciate your wisdom, your time, and thank you for bringing that wholeness to the individual, to the couples, and everything that we can reach one and another. Thank you, Rosina.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me today.